Slope-Intercept Form. Otherwise known as y equals mx plus b. Okay, so in the past weeks, we've been talking about slope, and we've been talking about standard form. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. Slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. We're going to write that as y equals mx plus b. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, x and y are going to be variables, but m and b are going to be numbers. M is going to be the slope. M is going to be the slope. And if you remember from past weeks, we've been talking about slope as change in y. So change in y over change in x. And another way we can write that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So m is going to be the slope. X is just a variable. It's just going to stay x. It's not going to change. Okay, and b is the y-intercept. B is the y-intercept. Which can be written as 0, comma b. So if you remember from last time, we were finding x-intercepts and y-intercepts. So if you wanted to find an x-intercept, you would let y be 0 and go from there. But if you wanted to find the y-intercept, you would let x equal 0 and you would go from there. So you would find the y-intercept by letting x be 0. Letting x be 0. So that's why you're always going to have a 0 for the first coordinate. That's for the x. And whatever the y-intercept is, that's going to be what b stands for. So you've got y equals mx plus b. That's called slope-intercept form. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going back and forth between slope-intercept form and standard form. So let's talk about standard form one more time. Standard form. Standard form is kind of like slope-intercept form, except it's written differently. If you remember, it's ax plus by equals c. Ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are just regular numbers, and x and y are variables. So we're going to be going back and forth between the slope-intercept form and the standard form. So we're going to get used to going back and forth between those, taking something that's in slope-intercept form, making it into standard form, which we did a couple weeks ago, and going from standard form to slope-intercept form, which we're going to be doing a little bit today. Okay? Now, starting with standard form, what we can do with that is, what we want to do with standard form is we want to get y by itself. So we want to solve for y. Solve for y. if we're given ax plus by equals c. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for y. Basically, I'm trying to get y by itself somehow. This variable right here. I'm trying to get it by itself. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to get everything else over to the right side where the c is. So the way I start off is I start off with ax plus by equals c. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of ax. I'm going to get rid of this ax right here. So how do I do that? Well, since it's connected by addition, I'm going to be doing the opposite of addition, which is subtraction, right? So we're going to subtract ax from both sides. Subtract ax from both sides. And what do I get? Well, on the left side, these cancel out, right? The ax and the minus ax, they're going to cancel each other out. So the only thing I have left on the left side is going to be by. And on the other side, I'm going to have negative ax plus c. Negative ax plus c. Okay? The c is positive, the ax is negative. Got it? Okay. So now I'm trying to get y by itself, which means I've got to get rid of this b that's out in front. Well, how can I do that? I can divide both sides by b. So I can divide both sides by b. And what's that going to do? Well, first of all, they kind of cancel out on this side. So I'm only left with y, which is good. That's what I was trying to get. Trying to get y by itself. Everything is now over on the right side. Now, I'm dividing everything on the right side by b. Okay? So I'm going to have negative a over b times x plus c divided by b. And now y is by itself. So I'm done. Now, whatever number is in front of x, whatever number it is, it might be a whole number, it might be a fraction, it might be a weird irrational number, but whatever number is in front of x, that is called the m, or the slope. So whatever number is attached to x, that is called the slope. And whatever number is being added off to the side, that's going to be my y-intercept. So this is my lowercase b or y-intercept. And I'm going to abbreviate it as y-int. Stands for y-intercept. So that's basically what slope-intercept form is. You've got y by itself. You've got mx plus b. And that's the way you go from standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay? Now let's look at some problems from the problem set. And we'll take a look at a few of those. And we'll see if we can go back and forth between standard form and slope-intercept form. Okay. I'll leave that up there for a minute. Okay. This is the first one we're going to do. 2x plus y equals -1. So what you'll probably notice about this one is it's in standard form. It's already in standard form. So I'm just going to write standard form. And what I want to do is I want to take it from standard form into slope-intercept form and possibly back. But we'll focus on one step first. So I already have something that's in standard form. It's basically in that ax plus by equals c that you're already aware of. And what I do is I want to take it from this form to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And that's pretty easy to do. You just got to get y by itself. And once you've done that, you've pretty much got it in slope-intercept form. So how do I go from this to slope-intercept form? I've got to get y by itself. So how do I get y by itself? I've got to get rid of everything else that's surrounding it, right? I've got to get rid of this 2x. Now the 2x is connected by addition. I can subtract 2x from both sides, and that way the y will be by itself. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, right here and right here. So I'm subtracting 2x from both sides. Now notice that on the left side, this 2x and this negative 2x are going to cancel each other out. So the only thing I have left on this side is really just going to be this y. And that's exactly the way I want it, because I'm trying to get y by itself. On the other side, I have -1 minus 2x. Now, when I write it in slope-intercept form, I always put the x term first. Notice that the x term always comes first, no matter what. So I'm going to put the -2x in front, and the -1 is going to go in the back. And that's fine to write it that way, because whatever number is out in front of the x is going to be called the slope. So what's the slope going to be? It's going to be -2. I'll put that in blue. This is my m, or slope. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the y-intercept. That's going to be the number that's not attached to the x. This -1 right here, this is my y-intercept, or b. So I have a slope of -2, and my y-intercept is -1. Okay? So we're going from standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one, number 2. So number 2 says 10x minus y equals -6. So let's try this one together. Now this one is already in standard form, the way that I see it. I know it's in standard form because the x and the y are on the same exact side. The x and the y are on the same side. So it's basically in that form of ax plus by equals c. Okay? But I want to take it and I want to make it into slope-intercept form. I want to make it into y equals mx plus b. So how can I do that? Well, I want to get y by itself, right? So how do I do that? Well, I've got to get rid of this 10x first. I've definitely got to get rid of that 10x. That's the first thing I want to do. And it's a positive 10x, right? So I can subtract it from both sides and see what happens. So let's subtract 10x from both sides to get rid of it. And I got to do it from both sides, right? So I'm doing it on both sides of the equal sign. So let's see what happens. Now, first of all, on the left side, notice that the 10x and the minus 10x are going to cancel out. So those are canceled. And the only thing I really have left on the left side is going to be the negative sign and the y. So the negative y is going to come down. And the equal sign, of course. Now, like I said before, I always keep the x term first. And then I put the slope in front of the x, which would be the negative 10. And then the negative 6 is going to go after that. So I'm going to have negative 10x minus 6 because they're both negative at this point. But that's about to change, right? Because I've got to get rid of that negative out in front so that I can have y by itself. That's important. So how do I get rid of a negative sign? Well, there are two ways that I can do it. I can divide both sides by a negative 1, or I can multiply both sides by a negative 1. It's actually the same way, but two different ways of doing it. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1 and see what happens. Okay? So let's divide both sides by negative 1. What's that going to do? Well, the negatives are going to cancel out over here. I'm only going to be left with a positive y. And then what's going to be on the right side? Well, I'm dividing everything by a negative 1, right? So the negatives are going to cancel for the 10x. So I'm actually going to have a positive 10x this time. That's for sure. And then the negative 6 divided by the negative 1 is going to give me a positive 6. So I'm going to have a plus 6. So basically, all the negatives cancel out. That's good. So now I'm left with y equals 10x plus 6. So now, what's my slope and what's my y-intercept? Well, the slope is always in front of the x, right? Or attached to the x in some way. That's going to be the 10. So I'm going to put that in the blue box. This is my m, or otherwise known as my slope. So that's what m is. M equals 10. And my y-intercept, or my lowercase b, is going to be the positive 6 that's off to the side. So I'm going to put that in my red box. And I'm going to label it b, or y-intercept. Don't know why it's called m or b, but we'll just go with it. So m equals 10 and b equals 6. So I could write m equals 10 and b equals 6. Okay. So that's going from standard form to slope-intercept form. All right. Let's do 2 more of these, and then maybe we can look at some graphs. All right. Let's do the third one. Number 3. So 3 says what? 7x minus 15y is equal to what? 11? Yeah. Okay. So this is starting off in standard form. I know it's in standard form because the x and the y are on the same side. But I do want to get y by itself because I want it to be in slope-intercept form. So I want it to be like y equals mx plus b. And that can be easily done. I've just got to get rid of everything that's surrounding the y, right? So the first thing I would do is I would probably get rid of this 7x. But then after that, I would have to get rid of the minus 15 as well. So we'll do that last. But the first thing I want to do is I definitely want to get rid of this positive 7x. So the way I do that is I subtract 7x from both sides. So let's do that. Subtract 7x here, and then on the other side, subtract 7x here. Okay. So on the left side, the only thing that remains is a negative 15y. And then what's going to be on the right side? A negative 7x plus 11. Good. Okay. So now we almost have y by itself, but I've still got to get rid of that negative 15 somehow. Now, since it's connected by multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 15. That way, the y is going to be by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 15. Okay. So doing that, the y is going to be by itself. Over on this side, I'm dividing everything by negative 15. So what's negative 7 divided by negative 15? Not really sure. I'm going to have to leave that as a fraction. And since they're both negatives, they cancel out to being a positive. So 7 over 15x minus 11 divided by 15. And that's it. That's your slope-intercept form. I've got y by itself, so I'm done. Now, what's my slope? My slope this time is going to be 7 over 15. So this is going to be my m, otherwise known as slope. And then this negative 11 over 15 over here, this is going to be my y-intercept. So let me label this as B, or the y-intercept. Same thing. Okay, so that's number 3. And I think the last one we're going to do is number 4. So let me do number 4. And then the rest of these that aren't done, you can try them on your own for the problem set. And then we'll talk about your homework, the classwork. Okay, number 4. X plus 4y equals negative 4. Okay, see if you can get this one before I get it. But remember, you also have to identify your slope and your y-intercept when you get done. Okay? So this is obviously in standard form because x and y are on the same side. So this is already in standard form. Because it's got the form ax plus by equals c. But I want to transform it into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So let's see if we can get y by itself. Well, I would get rid of the x first. I would subtract it from both sides. So subtract x. I get 4y equals negative x minus 4. Good, I'm almost done. Now the last thing I need to do is get y by itself. I need to get rid of this 4 right here. How do I get rid of that 4? I divide both sides by 4. So you could write it as everything over 4, or you can write it as divide this by 4 and divide this by 4, whichever way you want to do it. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. Negative 1 over 4 times x minus 1, because I got that 4 divided by 4. So negative 1/4 x minus 1. That would be my slope-intercept form. So what's the number in front of x? Negative 1/4, or negative 1/4, right? That's going to be my slope. So m, or slope. M stands for slope for some reason. I still don't know why. And the negative 1, that is my y-intercept, or b. I kind of have a sense of why b stands for y-intercept, but the slope is, I've never understood that. But basically, your slope is going to be negative 1/4, and your y-intercept is going to be negative 1. It's definitely a negative 1 because you got that minus out in front, right? Okay, so that's slope-intercept form.